an online certificate offered by the University of Vermont's Child Welfare Training Partnership. This module covers the topic of trauma-informed reflective practice and supervision, and was developed by Carol Graybill in partnership with the University of Vermont Department of Social Work. This module serves as an introduction to reflective practice for any service provider who works with children and families who have experienced trauma. Carmen's story. It's Monday morning, and Carmen, a therapeutic caseworker, is getting ready for work. Despite being alone, she hears herself say, "If only this were a 3-day weekend. When will we have a vacation?" As she prepares, she begins to recall some of the events from the previous Friday. First, she realizes that the report she had hoped to complete is due today. She asks herself, "What happened to my paperwork day?" While commuting, she notices that she feels sad and dull and dreads what is unknown about the day's agenda. She recalls the father who paged her late in the day for food pantry referrals. He often calls at this same time each week. Carmen wonders if the parent secured food for the weekend. She shakes her head in frustration. It is so much harder to find food resources when agency offices are closed on Friday evening. As Carmen listens to her favorite commuting music, an image pops into her head of a small preschool-aged child sitting alone in the reception area on one of the adult chairs. His legs are swinging and do not reach the floor. He is bundled in a winter coat, which looks more like a comforting turtle shell. He is sucking his thumb. His eyes are big and alert. A new foster mother walks through the door to take him to his emergency home placement. He does not speak, nor does his expression change when greeted by the overly exuberant parent. Carmen wonders why she is not experiencing more distress for this child and his unknown journey. This sort of thing happens every week at the agency, yet in another moment, she notes that she would be devastated if this happened to her own 2 children. Carmen sighs and recalls that today is her regularly scheduled reflective supervision group. She will present a case this day. She wonders which members will be present and if they can help her sort out her mixed-up feelings and thoughts. Carmen sort of wants to go and sort of does not want to go. She wonders if it would be easier to just keep working and not sit down with her team to begin talking through some of these experiences. She wonders if they will be able to let her talk about not having feelings. Carmen begins to jot down words that describe the images and her thoughts and feelings. When she thinks about sharing in the group, her eyes tear up. She wonders why she's crying. She finds that she can now recall more thoughts and feelings about witnessing the little child in the waiting room without a parent. Another thing to talk about with my group. As we begin this module, take a moment to think about why you are participating in this training. What is your wish? Let's take this opportunity to explore our wishes so we are clearer about the road we are selecting. This current path is exploring reflective practice in trauma-informed systems. Our wishes for this module may vary depending on our role within the service-providing system. For example, if you are a direct service provider, you may be hoping to gain knowledge and skills to increase your level of professional satisfaction. If you are a supervisor, you may be seeking ways to enhance the supervision experience for yourself and your team. In this learning module, we will explore the definition of reflective supervision. We will clarify why reflective practice is important for trauma-informed services providers, and we will begin to apply reflective practice strategies. The general label provider refers to the diverse workforce that services trauma-informed systems. This includes, but is not limited to, a caseworker, home visitor, caretaker, supervisor, or administrator. The slide contains colored prompts to support us in pausing to integrate the material. Case illustrations, which are light yellow shapes, deepen our learning by applying theory to work situations. Reflection, the light green shapes, offer opportunities for us to integrate the material. You will be asked to pause and reflect. Resources, the light blue shapes, extend learning by offering additional references. The light gray shapes are pearls of wisdom. quotes that support a given topic or concept. We will now review some learning tips for this module. 1. Learning is broader and deeper when participants share and talk through the material. This is especially relevant for training on reflective practice, which supports peers listening and responding to each other. If you are completing this module online, you may wish to gather with a peer group or to plan time for group discussion and processing of the training material. 2. Reflective practice begins with you. Be courageous. Reflection offers deeper challenge and deeper joy. Reflective practice is like a muscle. The more you exercise, the bigger it grows. And 3. Sometimes sharing reflections can stir emotions or trigger people. You are encouraged to self-regulate by taking a break, moving your body from sitting to standing, or pausing to take some deep breaths or a drink of water. Section 1 provides an overview of the history of reflective supervision, the 3 essential features of reflective supervision, and finally, a description of 4 different types of supervision. This quote by Ray Paul, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto others," embodies the importance of reflective supervision. If we want our service providers to provide the best, most compassionate care to families, we need to take care of them and help them process challenging feelings and reactions that are elicited in their work. Reflective supervision has roots in clinical supervision within mental health professions. Clinical supervision is provided to mental health professionals in pre-degree training and thereafter in the workplace. Some of you may have experience with psychodynamic clinical supervision. Reflective supervision is informed by this type of clinical supervision. Reflective supervision takes the reflective components of clinical supervision and offers them to all human service professions. Clinical supervision offers guidance by a person with more experience and/or authority to a practitioner who is learning observational skills, therapy interventions, and reflection. Primary clinical training does not always include reflective components. Reflective supervision supports training by supporting engagement. Reflective supervision was adapted for the unique needs of those serving infants and their families, and has been an important component of service provision in infant mental health for almost 3 decades. In the late 1980s, a 0 to 3 multidisciplinary group identified key knowledge and skills for those working with young children. By the 1990s, the group proposed important elements of training. One was individualized clinical-like supervision that encourages reflection and collegial support. For more information, review 0 to 3's Yellow Book, Learning Through Supervision and Mentorship to Support the Development of Infants, Toddlers, and Their Families. Over the course of the last 20 years, the scope of reflective supervision has been expanding to other providers across settings: home visiting, child welfare, Head Start, mental health, child care, early intervention, and pediatric medical clinics. Reflective supervision, RS, offers a benchmark for integrating reflection into program supervision and professional development. Advancements include some statewide credentialing systems. Let's look at some case illustrations. Brianna is a 26-year-old white female who holds a clinical professional license. She was recently promoted to supervisor. This is her first supervision experience. She practiced at the same agency in a mental health clinic. She supervises a team of veteran home visitors serving children at risk for abuse. Their previous supervisor retired after 35 years of service. Please think about or write down responses to the following questions. What are the strengths, vulnerabilities, and emotions that Brianna is likely to bring to the supervisory relationship? Anthony is a 45-year-old male of mixed ethnicities. He is an experienced caseworker who recently completed his master's degree. Anthony is a father of several teenagers and prefers working with adults. His position includes providing counseling to children of all ages. He is the solo mental health provider in a team servicing foster care clients. What are the strengths, vulnerabilities, and emotions that Anthony is likely to bring to the supervisory relationship? What type of supervision might be most beneficial for him? Now we will cover some definitions. Reflective supervision, RS, is the creation of a dedicated time and space in a professional setting for providers to explore their behaviors, motives, and emotions. It is a professional relationship in a professional setting that occurs regularly and in a predictable, scheduled manner. Exploring our own behaviors, motivations, and feelings is as important for us as for those we serve. This kind of exploration is especially helpful when it is offered in a safe relationship with unconditional positive regard. As Carl Jung wrote, we understand another person in the same way as we understand or seek to understand ourselves. What we do not understand in ourselves, we do not understand in the other person. Here are some other ways to describe reflective supervision. Reflective supervision is a collaborative relationship for professional growth that improves program quality and strengthens practice. It builds the capacity of individuals, relationships, and organizations by cherishing strengths and partnering around vulnerabilities. With this quote from Winnie the Pooh, we are reminded that service providers, although adults, also need and benefit from support, just as our child clients do. RS is stepping back from the immediate experiences to become more aware and sort through thoughts and feelings about what one is observing and doing with children and their parents. Reflective supervision treasures the unique relational qualities of supervision. Communication is the reflective space, and supervision deepens with time. Trust is built between the provider and the supervisor or consultant with quality attention. When we are able to share diverse opinions and tolerate differences, the potential solutions and successes in the work are far greater than when working in isolation. This type of sharing is generative. The essential features of reflective supervision are reflection, collaboration, and regularity. What can reflective supervision offer you? Please review the descriptions listed in the green circle and pick your top 3 priority goals. In reflective supervision, reflection refers to the practice of stepping back to consider the work from multiple perspectives. For example, asking the provider to consider how the client might think or feel about the situation helps enhance empathy and understanding. Collaboration refers to respectful mutual exchange. The role of the supervisor is to help the provider engage in effective problem solving. It is essential for supervision to take place consistently at an established time and day so that it is predictable. Reflection is wondering together about the history, feelings, and expectations one has related to events. This involves deep listening to your own thoughts and feelings as well as the thoughts and feelings of another. Safety and trust in the supervisory relationship cultivate reflection and mutual problem solving. No one enters the reflective space with solutions to the problem. Collaboration in reflective supervision recognizes that each participant possesses expertise and requires the participation of all parties. Judgment is suspended, and power differences are set aside during reflective supervision. Now, we will ask you to engage in a reflective activity. Identify a mentoring relationship in your life that has offered you unconditional positive regard. What emotions have you experienced with that person? Are there any pearls of wisdom from the mentor that inform your practice today? Regularity in reflective supervision is having predictable, regularly occurring meetings. It requires scheduling and safeguarding space and time with minimal interruptions. All members consistently show up with full attention. Consider the following case illustration. Sharice's reflective supervision group meets in a shared conference room. They are interrupted by multiple staff members who walk in despite the door being closed. What strategies can this group use to communicate that this meeting is important and confidential? Some strategies for Sharice's group might include communicating to all staff that a meeting will be taking place, posting a schedule and do not disturb sign on the door of the meeting room. In the group, discussing the emotional experience of interruptions and exploring any similarity for families they serve. Respecting time limits and not overextending use of room. Any other ideas? Consider the following case illustrations related to reflective spaces. Anthony engages in a weekly supervision with his administrator and clinical supervisor, who designates an additional portion of the time to focus on reflective practice. This allocation takes more time. Anthony's supervisor requests he bring a process recording, a detailed narrative of a client interaction, to better support his learning. Charisse, a child welfare caseworker, participates in a reflective supervision pilot program offering a bi-weekly peer group led by a grant-supported reflective consultant. Once a month, she completes a reflection tool to support her learning. Gloria, an early intervention manager, pays a consultant to support her in responding to her staff in ways that sustain quality services. She also uses this consultation to revise policies and procedures to embed reflective practice. Brianna advocates for a portion of her technical assistance funds to secure a reflective consultant who provides a monthly 90-minute group for her team. Brianna participates in individual reflective supervision with the same reflective consultant who provides confidential mentoring. Let's learn about 4 different types of supervision: administrative, clinical supervision, reflective supervision or consultation, and mixed mentor and manager. An administrative supervisor carries out the function of management. Primary tasks are to hire, orient, guide, oversee paperwork and report writing, explain rules and policies, and monitor and evaluate. Clinical supervision or consultation is more case-focused but also includes administrative tasks like review of casework, diagnostic impressions, and intervention strategies. Clinical supervision may provide guidance and mentoring. Reflective supervisors and consultants have specialized skills and practice in reflection. They create a reflective space for individuals or teams to learn about themselves and manage emotions. The reflective supervisor role may be a hired consultant. Bertocci and Gilkerson propose that the roles of the administrative supervisor and reflective supervisor can be combined. The mixed mentor and manager roles are equally accountable to program vision and mission. The mixed mentor and manager uses processes and collaboration to learn together, to set professional goals, and to improve the quality of services to families. Some of the actions of the mixed mentor and manager are to use process for problem solving, to understand human development, to use knowledge of self, to tolerate, process, and contain conflict, to come to terms with power dynamics in the supervisory-staff relationship. Supervision can be the place where a living profession breathes and learns. In the previous month, what percentage by type of supervision categories was offered to you? Your total for all 4 areas should be 100%. Are there any changes you would like to see in these percentages? In Section 2, we will learn why reflective supervision and practice is important in trauma-informed systems. Embedding reflective practice has positive benefits for providers and organizations. Programs flourish by implementing reflective supervision with improved engagement and quality services to families. Reflective supervision addresses secondary trauma among providers and utilizes collaborative professional development. Reflective supervision can benefit providers and support their professional development in several ways. Providers are better able to manage intense emotions arising from the work. Together, in a peer support environment, providers can explore different strategies to engage families. There is more team cohesion, and performance evaluation is collaborative. Reflective supervision supports providers in addressing the intense feelings that arise in practice because it offers a space to share all feelings and thoughts. Underlying motivations are pondered. Pausing to reflect before acting helps us regulate and ponder different strategies before reacting. Providers experience greater engagement with challenging families because they prioritize listening and observation. Both providers and families experience role competence. While it may take longer to practice good listening and observational skills, the quality of engagement in services is far better. Reflective supervision supports collaborative action rather than asserting one's agenda. Reflective supervision enhances team cohesion as teams and programs experience increased validation from their peers, supervisors, and administrators. Teams become closer and offer more support when they share vulnerabilities and strengths, and when they are supported in exploring their differences. This also supports a deeper appreciation for diverse cultures and perspective. Professional development and performance evaluation are collaborative by attending to providers' aspirations and building on their strengths. Reflective supervision supports organizational growth by promoting learning, improving communication, increasing staff satisfaction, and embracing diversity. When organizations commit to embedding reflective supervision in practice, they are able to experience the following benefits. The agency is able to identify as a learning organization. The organization is able to offer staff more opportunities for professional growth. Overall program quality improves. Staff are retrained because of increased voice and participation. Communication improves for multidisciplinary teams who discuss perspectives and gain respect for the unique contributions and skills of each. Reflective practice is embedded in all levels of leadership, and reflective supervision includes strategies for managing conflict, a relationship rupture and repair. Reflective supervision validates and attends to the impact of trauma exposure on providers who hear painful stories of traumatic experiences of children and witness intense levels of distress, anger, and grief. When providing services to children who are dependent on adults for nurture and safety, we often feel strong feelings of vulnerability, helplessness, and closeness. Reflective supervision can help providers manage and process these feelings. An important benefit of embedding reflective supervision in a program is that it attends to the impact of trauma exposure on providers. Providers often experience symptoms of secondary traumatic stress as a result of their work with children and families impacted by trauma. Signs of secondary traumatic stress may include cynicism, anger, or irritability, social withdrawal and disconnect from family and friends, changes in worldview, including a sense of futility or pessimism about people, anxiety or new fears, such as concerns about the safety of one's family, emotional detachment, depersonalization, or a sense of numbness, sadness or depression, and intrusive imagery or thoughts about victims, patients, or clients. If providers have a safe and nurturing supervisory relationship, in which they can explore the intense emotional reactions they have to the work, the impact of secondary traumatic exposure is reduced. The structure and regularity of reflective supervision is validating. Self-awareness prompts bring attention to feelings and body reactions. Reflective supervision emphasizes strengths and resiliency. In this, providers can experience vicarious resilience. For more information on the impact of trauma exposure on providers and organizations, refer to Module 10 on secondary traumatic stress. Let's go back to Carmen, the therapeutic caseworker, whom we met at the beginning of this training module. Carmen is experiencing multiple secondary trauma reactions related to observing the little boy in her reception area on Friday. She is bearing witness to the impact of trauma on this child. You may wish to return to Carmen's story on slides 4 through 7 for review. Which secondary trauma responses are notable? What are some emotional reactions she may have when witnessing the boy on Friday? What are some emotional reactions she may experience related to the boy on Monday morning? In Section 3, we will learn how to implement reflective practice by describing reflective processes and beginning strategies. As Egbert wrote, when professionals pay careful attention to the quality of our relationship with other professionals, we are supported to do our best work with babies and families. Reflective processes include the following: parallel process, observation is key, focus on process, conscious use of self, exploration of difference, and being held in mind. Additional reflective processes include a sense of safety is vital, regulation of emotions, reflection as trial action, and rupture and repair. Parallel process means that what is happening between two people on one level may impact relationships on a different level, a ripple effect. Observation is key. We observe through our unique skill sets, and when we share diverse observations, we have supervision. Focus on process entails a careful review of what happened, a recreation with as much information as one has available, and more comes thereafter. Conscious use of self is the strengthening of our awareness muscle as we pay attention to the impact we have on others and vice versa. In trusted relationships, we can explore and contemplate differences across culture, class, race, ethnicity, immigration, gender, orientation, and family styles. These relationships allow us to explore areas of comfort, and we are open to hearing about others. As the reflective supervision relationship grows and deepens, we become known to each other or held in mind. We experience mutual respect. A sense of safety is vital to these processes. In times of greatest vulnerability, we trust that we will be accepted and that what we share will be valued and treasured. Regulation of emotions involves pausing and taking note of body reactions and modulation of feelings. In reflective supervision, we can acknowledge the wide range of emotional reactions we have to the work, and this validates our experience. Using reflection as trial action means playing out together different ways one may understand why something has happened, or different ways one may respond to the situation. It is natural that conflicting needs and misunderstandings will arise. Together, we learn each other's perspective and move to a place of compromise. Conflict is not avoided, but used to deepen our mutual understanding. In this reflective scramble activity, you will be asked to match the example or statement to the reflective supervision concept. For example, I wonder what that father would wish to share with me about his immigration experience. Does this statement best represent parallel process, being held in mind, explore difference, or conscious use of self? What about the statement, I am here to understand, not to change you? When we consider my respectful attention to this parent could impact her attention to her child, which reflective practice is represented? What about, I think if I spend more time listening to the parent's frustration with the school, she may be willing to trust me? If a supervisor asks, would you be willing to do a role play so we can better understand that child's experience? Would he or she be practicing regulation of emotions, focus on process, or use of reflection as trial action? What about the statement, I'm aware this is one of my hot buttons. I need to take a deep breath before I respond. Read the third example and match it to the appropriate reflective supervision concept. The correct matches are as follows. I wonder what that father would wish to share with me about his immigration experience is an example of exploring difference. The second statement represents being held in mind. Parallel process is when we realize that attending to parents helps them tend to their children. The fourth statement represents use of self. Role plays are a good example of using reflection as trial action. Recognizing our hot buttons and pausing before reacting are examples of regulation of emotions. After those chaotic visits, I started jotting down my thoughts and reactions. I take all those pages of notes to supervision, represents focus on process. To deepen your reflective practice, consider the following actions. You will be asked to pick 2 that you may already be doing or want to try out as a follow-up to this training. Reading reflective supervision reference materials, seeking reflective consultation, enriching your supervision experiences with reflective practice, beginning conversations with key stakeholders who can support reflective supervision, and scheduling special meetings designated for reflective practice. Being transparent by sharing your desire to become more reflective in your practice with staff and/or supervisors. Consistently using reflective questions in supervision and case conferences. Being an exceptional listener. And engaging in mindfulness and self-awareness activities. Which 2 actions from slides 56 and 57 will you focus on? Exceptional listening means listening for people's experiences and their awareness of their experience, noticing their nonverbal reactions, noticing strengths, resisting the writing reflex, letting go of the agenda, committing to listening for at least 20% of each interaction, and listening to your own reactions and emotions. Reflective questions that explore multiple perspectives include, I keep wondering about, and I'm curious about. Reflecting on cultural and personal biases includes asking how you understand the other person's behavior and what you would do if you were in the other person's shoes. What was that like for you? Is an example of how we can notice emotions. Awareness and regulation includes scanning your body for tension and taking intentional pauses before reacting. Questions that reflect sharing process includes, what has it been like for you? For a concluding reflection, you may ask about any aha moments and what the other person wants to take away from the experience. To deepen your practice, consider the following. Are there particular perspectives that are difficult for you to take? Observing your physical reactions in order to self-regulate. Considering alternate explanations and perspectives, which can include asking colleagues how they would respond. Attending to aspects of your work that are energizing and those that are draining, and addressing tensions before they erupt. In conclusion, please write down 3 words that describe your experience of this training module. What was your aha moment? What do you want to take away from this training to impact your practice? Thank you for completing this module on reflective practice and supervision.